Okay, yeah, let's go. Okay, let's begin again from Perek Hey, Mishnah Gimel, 5th Perek, 3rd Mishnah. So these next few Mishnayos are discussing if you buy from a... whether you can assume the produce you bought is all the same status for Demai purposes, or whether you have to be concerned that maybe some was what comes from one source and some comes from another, and then you treat each one individually, because maybe one did take Meiser and one didn't, and one has a real obligation and the other does not. So Mishnah Gimel begins, Halakech min anachtain, somebody who buys bread from a baker. Meiser min achama latzainenus min atzainenus alachama. He could take Meiser from the hot bread on the cold bread, meaning from today's bread on yesterday's bread and yesterday's bread on today's bread, because it's all the same person. So presumably he either does or doesn't take off Meiser on all the stuff he sells. Even if you're buying from many different batches. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can't do that. Because maybe the baker didn't care. Yesterday's wheat flour maybe came from one person, and maybe the flour he's using today comes from a different source. And since the two flours come from different sources, maybe one had Meiser taken and one didn't. Therefore, you can't take Meiser from one day's bread on the other. Rabbi Shimon says that's only true by the Trumas Meiser, which is going to depend on the source of the grain. But Chala, which is the baker's obligation and either did or didn't take off, that you could take off all the bread of one baker. You could assume he either did or didn't take off Chala, and you could take off all from any on any other. Mishnah Dalet. Halakeach min apalter. If instead of buying straight from the baker, you buy from the storekeeper who bought from the baker, Meiser mikol teifus v'teifus. So then every tray of bread you buy from, you have to be concerned. Maybe it's a different status. Maybe this one's from one bakery, one's from another bakery. So you have to take off Meiser from each one. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer no. Me'achas alakol. You assume that the storekeeper got all his bread from one source, and you would take off you take Meiser from one on the other. You assume they all came from one. In any given day, the bread in the store came from one bakery. Rabbi Yehuda agrees, but if you buy from the person who has the monopoly, so he's the only one who's allowed to sell bread in town. So obviously all the bakers give him their bread and he sells it. So presumably his bread comes from all over town because all the bakers have to sell their bread through him, and there's no reason to assume that all the bread is from a single source.
What's that word?
It's monopoly. It's the same word.
But what is it? What's the sharish?
It's a Greek word.
Oh
yeah. Halokeach min ha'ani. If you buy from a poor person, v'chein ha'ani shenaisen leprusas pas, or a poor person who by handouts, people give him pieces of bread, or plachi develo, or pieces of date cake figs. But the poor person gets a little bit here, a little bit there. So if you're buying from him or what he has, meiser mikolech ve'echad, it comes from all sorts of different people. So you have to take meiser from each one. Ub'tamar gregoris, if they're figs or dates, boil v'neisein, the first time it says you can just mix them all together and assume that he'll get back proportionally because they're smaller pieces. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Amosai, when's that? Bisman Shamatana Meruba, when the gifts he got were large, meaning they're all the same size, so he got about the same amount from each person, so if you mix them together, you assume they get distributed evenly. Avulzman Shamatana Muetas, but if one of them is small and the other is a majority, then you're worried that Rov will assume it all came from that one. Therefore, Meiser Mikol Echad Ve'echad, you would have to take off Meiser from each one. And Mishnah Vav, Halakeach min asitayn, if you buy from a wholesaler, v'chazar v'lakachim min hashniya, and then you make a second purchase from him. Again, lo yaser mizeh al zeh, you can't take meiser from what you bought from him one day on the next. Afilu miyaseh asug, afilu miyaseh min, it's the same thing, same type. They're both wheat, they're both the same type of wheat. But still, he's a wholesaler. He has many different suppliers, and possibly they came from different places. However, the wholesaler is believed to say that all this wheat that I'm selling today and yesterday, I got it all from one farmer. There we would believe him, and then you could take meiser from one on the other. Okay, we'll stop here.